Marisa Inda. I am 43 years old. I compete in USAPL, IPF powerlifting. I'm a 5-time national champion, 1-time world champion. I actually started lifting when I was 17 years old. I come from a gymnastics background, and once I stopped being competitive in that, I needed something to do. And I just sauntered into a gym one day, and I've been addicted ever since, and that was at 17 years old. And oddly enough, I always just find it funny that this day and age, like, girls always talk about feeling intimidated walking into a gym with men. Back then, there was like no girls in the weight room, and I was really welcomed with open arms. Like, the guys were like, you know, not hitting on me or anything crazy like that. Like, cool, this is exciting. Let's just show her how to lift weights, and put a barbell in my hand, and I've been doing it ever since. The very first time when I walked into that weight room, one of the guys afterward was like, hey, I can tell like you could probably do very well in bodybuilding. You should do a bodybuilding competition. There's, you know, here's a flyer, and you know, here's the ones that they're at. Got a Flex magazine, and I, you know, stupidly at that time, I just followed one of the bodybuilding guys' routines, which was like a gazillion sets and reps, and nearly died. But that was kind of like the first hardest workout I had ever done, following some program that I probably had no business following, and you know, just loved it, and then just started refining it from there, just based on, you know, common sense. Earliest memory was my first competition. So right as I started weight training, I signed up for a bodybuilding show, and it was like the Colorado Teen, you know, Championships, and I started getting ready for that. Honestly, didn't really know what I was doing because I was still kind of learning everything, reading. So that first show I spilled over is what they would call it, where I carved up a little bit too much. But because there was not a lot of competition, especially as a 17-year-old girl, I of course won, and then I kind of got addicted to that, and then started just, okay, this is what I did for this one, what do I need to do for the next one? And I just started competing in bodybuilding and loved it. And I probably loved it to a point, to a fault, where I was like, okay, if I was working or at school, like, oh, I can't stay past for this lab, gotta go to the gym. It actually almost became like a very strange addiction in that way, where it's like my focus was 100% on that. I realized very quickly that I was definitely not going to be competitive with the other females in the sport, especially as I aged out of the teen division, because I wasn't doing drugs. And you know, that's when drug use started to get very big, and I just wasn't competitive. Last show I did before I switched over to powerlifting was Junior USA's, and just got annihilated just because I was nowhere near lean enough. And it stopped being fun at that point because I knew I could never win. So powerlifting happened after I had my kids. I was still always training because I loved the gym. I loved it that much that even though I wasn't competing, I always loved going to the gym. I was just in the gym training. This is probably like 3 years after I had my son, and I saw a flyer for California State Games, and I was like, oh, cool, I've always been kind of strong because I've always lifted with a barbell and dumbbells, always been free weight lifter. Just signed up for it, knew nothing about it, and was still training as a bodybuilder. Just had zero idea of what I was getting myself into because I'd never went to watch a powerlifting meet, and just jumped into a meet and just did it, and actually walked away with like all the California state records for the weight class. And I did a couple more meets by myself. I was able to make it to Worlds in South Africa on my own. And after that, that's when I had, you know, Instagram was kind of getting really popular, and I saw Chad Wesley Smith, Juggernaut, and got in touch with him, and then he took over my coaching from there. First time powerlifting pushed back at me is when I was trying to simultaneously thinking I wanted to cut down a weight class and do a physique show. And this is my first national meet, and I bombed out on squats. I was cutting depth. You know, it's a very humbling experience to bomb out at a national meet when, you know, kind of people are starting to talk, oh, like this is the girl that could give Suzanne Hartwig a little bit of run for her money, but nope, you bomb out. And then that kind of gets in your head confidence-wise. So it was like the first time I really felt, wow, okay, this could not go well, and then what? The biggest hardship I've had is right after Worlds in 2017. So that was the year that I won the World Championships. I won the Grand Prix at the Arnold. So it was like, wow, okay, everything is going really good. Right after that meet, couldn't bend over, couldn't tie my shoe. And I'm like, oh my God. We got on a plane, then got on a train. And I think it was just heavy lifting combined with sitting for like 10 hours. And my sciatic just started flaring up, and I couldn't bend over. And I honestly thought, okay, maybe this might be like a 6 to 8 week kind of ordeal. It turned into, it's been an ongoing ordeal for the last 2 years. And so I've just been able to find workarounds that have worked for me to still continually make progress, but then to also make me feel like I am, moving forward instead of moving backwards. So. My most memorable, greatest moment was at the 2017 Arnold Grand Prix. I went 9 for 9 at that meet. I set the all-time world record total at that time, and it was the best meet ever. I mean, even though the all-time world record got broken like 2 weeks later, just to set it at that time, and it was amazing. To be number one, it makes you feel like all the hard work that you've put into something, all the sacrifices. And this is a sacrifice I've made since I was 17 years old, to have my mom be like, well, if you invested as much time in, school or your job, you could be a CEO. And it's like, okay, but I'm investing time in something that I love and I'm number one at it. So it has not been a waste of time. I think the biggest thing that being involved in powerlifting has changed for me has been the ability to continually push myself. I don't think people realize how scary it is to stand in front of 419-pound deadlift when you're 114 pounds. Coming back from even a back injury, and to be able to go there and mentally have the mental fortitude to just make it happen, I can take that mindset to any part of my life. My biggest bit of wisdom that I can pass along to anyone is whatever it is you choose to do, be consistent in that activity. If you want to lose weight and have six-pack abs, be consistent in your nutrition and with your diet. If you want to be a better lifter, you have to be consistent in the gym, putting in the work. Consistency is king over anything that you do in life. I will train till the day I die. I trained a couple hours before I gave birth to both of my kids. Training for me is the best stress reliever. If you're battling depression, training is the best thing that you can do for yourself. So I will always train.